Alrighty, so this video is going to be on how I evaluate, properties on the MLS as a realtor. So one of the MLSs that I use is called Flex MLS. So I got a property that I'm going to go look at in the Holiday City area of Toms River. So when it comes to looking at comparable sales, the rule of thumb is to go a half mile to a mile radius. So for me, I actually, just in this specific area, being that there's so many houses that are the same and they're very cookie cutter, I like to look at the general, pretty much the general area for that specific type of models. Um, so in Holiday City, it's an adult community, pretty much adult communities. So instead of looking at ranch to ranch or colonial to colonial, you're going to look at the models because the models is just basically the same exact house. Maybe it's flipped around, but for the most part, you're dealing with the same exact house. So when I come into the Flex MLS, what I like to first start out with is going to quick search. From there, quick search is going to take me to this map view. Typically, I'll put in the address of the property. Um, for this sake, being that I don't want to disclose the address that I'm working on, I'm not going to do it for this sake of this video. But for the most part, I'm gonna draw boundaries as far as the area that I want to deal with. We're gonna go to closed status. So I want to see everything that's sold in the last pretty much 6 to 12 months. So right now it's set up for the last 12 months. The model that I'm specifically dealing with today is going to be the Sarasota model. So in the last 12 months, there have been 20 Sarasota models that have sold. And I typically like to look from the highest sold comparable sales to the lowest sold comparable sales. So it looks like the highest in this area is 382.5, and the lowest in this area is about $197,000. So rule of thumb for me, I like to get about 3 to 5 um, pretty much renovated sold comps in the area. So when I come in here, the first thing I really want to look at is, condition of the property, verifying that it's renovated. So as you can see, they came in here and did a beautiful job. The other thing I want to see is that, so I know they sold it for 385,000, excuse me, $382,500. Um, One thing I want to see is did they get their original accent price? And it looks like they came down about 2,500 bucks. So they didn't get their full ax. The other thing is I want to see when excuse me, I want to see what the house was bought for prior to them renovating it. So when I go to history, it'll give me all the listing history for this property. So it looks like this property was potentially, it looks like it was bought for $226,500 back in June of last year. And I also like to see the tax history. So I want to see if this was bought by a LLC. Just from the look of it, it does look like an investor came in here and purchase this property. Hmm. Looks like we're having some internet problems. Hmm. All right, so we'll let this load up. All right, so it looks like the tax website is down. But yeah, so the listing history pretty much tells me what it was bought for. So they bought it for 226.5, sold for 282.5. So that's, that's a good comp to add. Next comp I want to look at is the second highest comp in the area that sold for 380. Again, same exact house. Looks like it was a investor that came in here and flipped this. So we'll check the history. You can see that this was bought for 260 beginning or earlier this year in March. They pretty much sold it in about fairly quick time frame. So about 3 months they were in and out. Next property. So it's funny, I actually sold this investor this property. So this property was bought off market. I believe I sold it to them for about 200 if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, they did a wonderful job on this one as well. So really nice property. So I already have my three highest comps. So I like to get about 3 to 5. So as I keep looking, all these, pretty much it looks like the top four comps are renovated. This one was sold for 342 and it was bought for 235,000 2 years ago. And then my last potential comp, because these are pretty much all renovated. Looks like this one has an older roof, so not fully done up, but they did a pretty good job from the looks of it. Also has looks like it has a sunroom as well. So there you have it. So I have my five highest comps in the area. And I believe our property should be in Holiday City, Berkeley. So I do take into consider, yes, I'm looking at the general area, but I do want to also factor in what adult community that I'm in as well. So that does play a factor. For the most part, it looks like 99% of these comps are in Holiday City, Berkeley. So I'm assuming, the property I'm going to go see is in that same neighborhood. So now that I've seen, my 3 to 5 highest comps, now I'm going to scroll down. I want to see the low comps. I want to see, I have an idea of what these investors are paying. So, 200, 225. The highest one I've seen is 260. Maybe that house was in better condition than the others. But now I want to focus on the lowest comps and I also want to focus on the cash sales, because most of these properties are going to be bought, either cash or hard money. So what I'll do is I'll add a filter for sold terms. So I'm going to be a little bit more specific and I only want to see the cash transactions that have been done. So it condenses it down to 12 that have sold in the past year. And what I want to see is if a regular homeowner bought these properties or investors came in here. And I want to look for the lowest comps. So the lowest comp so far sold for 197,000. I like to check the price history because then it can tell me whether it hit the market again. So it looks like they bought it for 197 and then they sold it for 325. So I could pull up that listing right here. Don't look like, huh. I mean, they did a pretty good job. I'm surprised. Well, I'm not super surprised that it sold for that cheap. The market is very saturated over here. It's either you're going to sell the house in the first 30 days and get what you're looking for, or it's going to be sitting for months. It's just kind of hit or miss. So my second highest comp sold for $225,000, a cash deal. It looks like it's active on the market right now for 399. So let's take a look at what they have done. Very clean house, fully renovated. And then we can actually see what it looks like prior to them renovating it. So as you could tell, for $225,000, this house Wasn't in terrible condition, but it still needed work. So that sold for 225, bought by an investor. Now, the third cash sale, let's see how this looks. Clean but dated. Okay, so you got another clean but dated house. It looks like they bought this for 242.5, and now they're currently under contract for 349.9. So I just want to see what the after product looks like. Very clean. Looks like they got a floating cabinet. Very clean house. And they're trying to get 349.9. Looks like it's been on the market 2 months. Um, so this is another good deal, right? Excuse me, another good comp to add. Then I'm gonna go to my next one. So we got another one. And I typically will get about I would say 3 to 5 low comps if you want as well. Usually I go with the three lowest, but as I keep looking, it looks like this one was bought for 244 last year. Not too many photos. Let's see what it looks like now. So they got it up on the market at 399. This one's been on the market 121 days. So this thing is probably, like I said, it's either going to sell in the first 30 days, first week, or it's going to sit. And this is a really, for the most part, it's a very clean house. Updates look clean. Also has a sunroom in the back. And yeah, so sitting and sitting. You know what it was? Look, so their original price, they were trying to get 425. So it looks like the reason why they couldn't get it sold is because it's overpriced, realistically. So now that they lowered it down, it still hasn't sold yet, but you got to make sure that when you're putting these properties up on the market, that you're putting them at the right price, or they will sit, especially in this area, because there's nothing unique about these homes. There's nothing unique about these homes at all. They're all cookie cutter. They're all set up the same. I mean, yeah, some might have, different amenities, but for the most part, it's all the same shit. So that's about it. I don't think I'm gonna look for any more low comps. The other thing I can do is check what's active and what's under contract. And we're just gonna remove this filter. So it looks like you got about 15 of these Sarasota models that are active on the market at the moment. And when I'm checking, so this is the overpriced one. Actually, is this the correct one? Okay, yeah, so they had this one up at 424. So they're just pricing these things a little too high. I mean, I'm not mad at it. You do see a lot of comps that are in the fours as well, but like I said, there's just so much supply in this area that it makes it sometimes, tough to get the number you're looking for. This one's been on the market 72 days, so you're pushing almost 2.5 months, and these are very clean homes. So this one's, pending. I think we just already looked at this one, 62 days on the market. This one looks like it fell out of contract. Very clean homes. These are all very clean homes. This one's clean too. Not fully updated. Wow, priced at 300K. So it gets a little concerning. I mean, this one's nice too, you know. But yeah, so I kind of just factor in this area that it's very saturated. So that's why these homes are, you kind of see a wide range. So typically what I would do is I will add some of these. So I do want to get my active, my under contracts. And so now I'm gonna, you know, now figure out what my after repair value is. For the most part, best case scenario, I get the higher threes. Worst case scenario, I'm looking at the lower threes. Just quickly looking at it. But what I'll do is to get my after repair value, I'll take my three highest comps. So I got my 382.5, my 380, and my 349.9. And I will divide by three. And then I usually just round up or down. So, 370,000 is like best case scenario right now on average. And then what I'll do to get my lower after repair value is now I'll take my five highest comps. So, one, two, three, and then four to 342 and 340. And now I will divide by five, and I'm just going to round it up to 360. So on average, if I'm going to flip this house, I'm thinking I can get about 360, 370. I'm not going to aim for this, the sky. I'm going to try to price it right in the middle and pray that I can get it sold, for a decent price. So 360, 370. From there, I now want to figure out my rehab costs. So typically, let's see, what am I looking for? So I'll bring out my little rehab. It's my little like rehab table. So the house that I'm looking at is probably gonna, it's livable, but it's probably gonna need work to about ugly. So I take the range of about $35 a square foot to about $65 a square foot. Sarasota models in this area are about, I want to say 1,092 square feet. So best case scenario, roughly I put 40 grand into it. Excuse me, yeah, that was best case scenario. Worst case scenario, I'm putting about 70 grand into it. So the way I do my formulas is that I'll take the after repair value. So I'll start with the worst case scenario. So, and then I'll times it by 75%. So I want to be 75% of the ARV, which is 270. And then I'm going to minus 70 grand. That's the worst case scenario. So I want to be about 200,000. If I was going to buy this direct to seller, I would offer 200,000. If I want to wholesale it on average, I try to make about $30,000 on my wholesale fee. So my starting offer is going to be about 170,000. Now, best case scenario, let's just say I get 300 and I think we said ARV was best case scenario was 370. So 370, and then I'll be a tad bit more aggressive, and I'll be all in my investment 78% of after repair value. So that puts me at 288 and with a 40 grand rehab. So that's best case scenario. So that's telling me I could pay at most about 250 for the property. If I'm just going to buy it directly. If I want to, wholesale it to another investor, then like I said, a rule of thumb for me is I try to make about 30 grand. So I'm anywhere between the range of about $170,000. That's would probably be my lowball offer. To best case scenario, I'd offer $220,000 and I would start in that range. I know I can probably pay up to 250, but the name of the game is to buy low, sell high. So if I can get it in those ranges, not only does it give me the option to be able to either buy it outright or I could wholesale it to another investor, make my money, move on to the next transaction. So that's in a sense how I look at properties on the Flex MLS in order to, get these offers out, especially in this Holiday City area of Tom's River. So yeah, so I'll be making more videos like this, showing you guys an in-depth analysis of how I look at properties. And yeah, stay tuned in.